Hello, hello there. My name is Murray. I'm with my co-host Corey. We are The Real Guys, and this is The Real Show with two ears. We're coming at you on a wonderful day, and we're going to make it an even better day with this broadcast. We're ready. We're starting off. It's a new epic month. We're sort of premiering a new epic month, and as always, I'm accompanied by my co-host Corey. How are you doing today, Corey?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. It's good to hear you, in fact. It's good to see you.
It is. We're in person again.
We are. We're in person, and we're surrounded by the equipment, we're surrounded by the atmosphere of the radio sphere and the listening sphere.
We are.
For you listeners today.
It's the first time in studio for us, so if
Yeah.
it's a bit janky, bear with.
First time, and what a thing we're starting off with, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to give the listeners a little introduction, perhaps?
So this is going to go out on if you're watching it on a Saturday, 30th of March.
Mm-hmm.
However, the first week of Star Wars month has been taken over by Moon Knight.
Yes,
so we pushed it back a little bit.
We're covering the rest of Moon Knight.
Yes.
During our first episode of May, but the rest of May will be part of the May the 4th
Exactly.
Star Wars month, where we cover Star Wars for the entire month of May. So this is a little taster, this is a little opener, and what I think to open with, every saga has a beginning.
It does.
And the beginning of the Skywalker saga is 1999's Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Exactly. I'm going to mention something now. I've not seen this for ages. Probably about 5 or 6 years old is when I first saw this. And I sat down, and the first things that are spoken in this film, right, the first words that are said are spoken by Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
And it's Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, I have a bad feeling about this. And that was very relatable, because that's exactly what I was feeling about the film when I first started watching it. Anywhere you want to start in particular?
Anywhere I'd like to start? Well, let's start in 1994.
Okay.
Right? Not the year this film came out.
No.
Right.
Is that the year production started?
Yes,
by
the
chance?
year writing process started in 1994. I'd also like to start with a man called John Knoll. Do you know who John Knoll is?
I do not.
John Knoll is one of the heads of Industrial Light and Magic,
Nice.
the studio that was made from Lucasfilm to
Yes.
cover all of their special effects, all of the creatures, everything, or the CGI, everything was covered by a massive task that ILM underwent. At ILM's annual general meeting, AGM, every year, John Knoll would sit with all of his staffers, all of his crew members, some eminent directors and producers and writers from sort of Lucasfilm and affiliate, would all sit together and discuss the new projects for the year. And every year, George Lucas, who was present, would be asked, George, are you making a new Star Wars film? By someone they'd raise their hands and go, George, we're making a new Star Wars film yet? And every year, George would go, no, not really thinking about anything to do with that. From every year up to 1994, when George was asked that question, and he said, maybe. And it was that day everyone knew a new Star Wars film was coming. And in 1999, we got it with The Phantom Menace. The build, the hype, was unimaginable. Questions are asked of, if you would go back in time, where would you want to be? You can't change anything. You cannot interfere. You must be there. You must be a passive observer.
Okay.
Where would you go? And I always answer this question with the same thing. I'd go the release date of The Phantom Menace.
1999.
1999.
You wouldn't go episode 4?
No, I'd go 1999.
Okay.
Because I feel like the reaction this film got, the hype that was built without 15 years without a Star Wars film.
True.
And one of the biggest franchises ever in the world, not even the biggest sci-fi franchises. May 19th was the release date of The Phantom Menace. And I'd want to go. I'd want to be there May 19th, 1999, sit in that cinema, see that title card, feel the atmosphere of the fans with their toy lightsabers and their Jar Binks costumes.
Yeah.
I'd want to be there. I'd want to feel the atmosphere. I want to feel the presence.
I mean, I suppose it would be similar to when the new sequel came out.
Yeah.
Because that for us is because I don't know how many years that was between that and the last one, but it was, again, probably about a similar time.
It was about 10 years, I think.
Yeah, and it's like I remember that coming out. I know that
the big
hype.
The big hype, and this was even bigger. From this went off the Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
To this, and it was when we're taking it far behind the story. It's a prequel. It's before the events of the trilogy. No one knew. It was untapped. No one knew what we were going to get, and that was the spark. Now, you took some notes doing watching film, as did I.
Yep.
As the plot began, as we got that first crawl, boom, Star Wars, wow. Everyone's, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars.
Yep.
You know, Starfield, right? Starfield text. There's something about a trade embargo.
Yes, there is.
You know, the Galactic Republic is engulfed in the grip of a trade disagreement. In fact, I have the crawl right here.
Okay.
Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute, which get your popcorn at the at the stand, right? Hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships, the greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the small planet of Naboo. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, to settle the conflict. Then we get introduced to Naboo, the Trade Federation, and all their big Lucre Hulk class battleships, like huge donuts in the sky, donuts in space. So walk us through your thoughts.
So, like I said before, I haven't seen this film in years. It's probably been 15, maybe 14 years since I've seen it. And one of the things I remember is, for me anyway, Qui-Gon Jinn is one of the best Star Wars characters we've had. Granted, spoilers, he's only in this film. By the end of it, he's gone. I really like. It was good to see him again. I also have memories of this. I have more memories of Phantom Menace from the old PS1 game that I used to play all the time. I have more memories from that than I actually did the movie before I've seen it again.
Really?
Yeah. You know what? One of the first things that struck me is it looks good. Granted, this was like 22 years ago now.
I was going to mention the amount of hours, the amount of years that this was film years in the making. The amount of practical effects, the whole boot, we're going to skip ahead here, but the pod race scene, that big arena, that's all practical. The majority was practical. It was just enhanced by CGI.
Yeah. Also, some of the effects look better than things we see today.
I think so, actually.
One of them that comes to mind, if you listen to our last week's episode where we covered Doctor Who, you know how the Sea Devil jumps on a ship?
Oh, yes.
Very reminiscent of a Jedi jump, and this does it better.
The Jedi jump does look good. It's a bit of blur on it. He's got the Force jump looks great.
It does.
I feel like the droids, the battle droids, look like they're actually there.
Yes.
Well, the battle droid, I don't know. I know they built like practical models for like scaling and stuff.
They did.
They built practical models for scaling because I watched a documentary on this in preparation for this episode. They built like an actual droid model just for scaling, so how it would look. But the CGI of them and how they're sort of jittery and they sort of move and they're sort of clickety clack walking and like when they're walking through the streets. And
the droids in this are really good. Some of them were practical.
Yeah.
Because I know there's some deleted scenes and stuff where like they get pushed over by someone, and that's an actual kind of like 1-by-1 scale of a droid. The massive like I guess battle scenes you see in this, like the one with like the Gungans.
Yeah, the Gungan on the Naboo plains.
Yeah, where like all the droids like are weirdly just on a really long rail and just slowly lowered.
The MTTs, that is one of the best sequences of the entire film, where the big MTT, the sort of big brown metal tank, the droid tank, it opens and all the racks come out and you hear that sort of beeping noise, like it's a truck that's reversing, and it lowers and all the racks come off, and it's like, and the guy goes, activate the droids, and then he presses the button and they all sort of unfold to that music, and you see their heads come up. And they sort of move around like they're a camera on a gimbal. They sort of center, and they all pull out their guns at the same time. And they do that the military term where like, there's so many of them. They're all doing the same motion at the same time. It's like the echoing noise. It's really the droids in this are quite legitimately threatening. Like they gun people down. Yeah. They kill loads of Gungans in the battle.
I mean, they're threatening in Star Wars senses, even though you know for a fact hundreds of them are going to just be perished because it's Jedi. But there you go.
Yeah. The Jedi cut through them like butter in that opening scene.
Which was on, I think it was one of the it was behind the scenes. It was on purpose. They're supposed to be bad.
Yeah, they're supposed to be, like the stormtroopers, a bit gimmicky.
Yeah, a bit inefficient.
A bit jokey, a bit inefficient. Yeah. Even though they sound threatening enough.
Yeah, they do.
And I feel like their voices have been kind of comedy-sized recently, where they're very high-pitched and stuff. But now they sound like actual machines in this one. Like, they go, like, check it out, Corporal, Roger, Roger. They sound a bit more threatening, a bit more mechanical in this, I think, rather than just a bit high-pitched voices. Still sort of mechanized, but in recent Star Wars media.
I do have one question.
Far away.
This involves voices and things sounding different.
Okay.
One of the first things I remember standing out is, and I told you this before when I had to research some things, the Neimoidians.
Yes.
Which is one of the things I had to research and what they were called. Yeah. I found their accents to be sometimes a bit weird and not in a good way.
Right. Well, let's talk about the Neimoidians, because they serve as our antagonists, apart from the two ones we'll get onto in a minute. The Neimoidians, the Trade Federation, comprised of Newt Gunray, who is the viceroy of the Trade Federation. His assistant, Rune Harko, And there's another Neimoidian who's called Dauphine, I believe his name is.
Okay.
And he's sort of the captain of the ship they're on.
Yep.
And then there's Te Hao, who is the Neimoidian with the goggles and the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Who's actually voiced by George Lucas's daughter.
Oh, very nice.
So if you didn't know that. Now these are all practical suits.
Yes.
These were all sort of mechanized suits, and I still have an issue with the mouths. I know they got better. The technology got so better where they could actually motorize the movements of the mouth. Yeah. So it sounds like they're saying these are practical actors wearing suits, right? But so much so that especially in this film, I think with the Neimoidians, their mouth just kind of flaps open and shut like a muppet.
Yeah.
And the words come out, but it doesn't look like they're saying them at all.
No.
Sometimes I thought they said a word and their mouth opened and that's not how you say that.
Yeah.
That word, or their mouth will be open and they'll be saying nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice that. I was able to kind of go, okay, it's 1999 or whatever, fine.
Yeah.
It was just the accent, but the way they said some things sometimes. Sometimes it was fine. They sound like, I mean, you mentioned mouse and Muppety. Sometimes they speak Muppety. Very much like all the time.
Okay, yeah.
One of the things I noted was the fact that anytime they said droideka, which is exactly, it's Brodeka. It's like great.
Droideka. Well, no, there's a reason behind this. You know how they pronounce the word Jedi? They say, have you ever encountered a Jedi Knight before, sir?
Yes.
You know, they say Jedi like it's two words.
Yeah,
Jedi,
two syllables,
right?
yes.
And that's because the Neimoidians are quite an old species to the galaxy.
Right.
And the Jedi, before the Old Republic, were actually called the Jedi.
Right.
Like G-E-D-A-I. You know, they were called the Jedi like it was two words.
Right.
So that's why the Neimoidians call them that. It's not their pronunciation.
Okay.
So there's a nice little note there. But still, yeah, the Neimoidians. Now these guys should have been the comedy of the episode. I thought these guys was incredibly funny.
Yes.
But not even meaning to be.
No.
Funny. Like the line I just said, where Rune Harko asks sort of Newt as they're walking through the bridge. He says, "Oh, have you ever dealt with these Jedi before?" And he goes, "I don't know." He turns to the officer and he goes, "Close the doors. Shut the doors. They're coming for us."
I mean, yeah, they should have been. They were, I mean, to be fair, overall they were fine. I mean, one of the things I did make notes of, and it's one of the things I think Phantom Menace does really well, is in classic Star Wars fashion, there's, and you mentioned the Podracing Scene does it as well, there's so many different alien species that exist, and so many different creatures. Like, there's 8 pod racers who are all different species. The Jawas appear in it, Tusken Raiders are there. There's the Announcer, which is a weird, two-headed thing.
Yeah.
You've got when they go underwater, when we go for the Gungan, with a bongo.
Yeah, what happens is, well, let's skip forward a bit in the story. They discover that they're preparing to invade Naboo.
Yes.
The plan was, Newt Gunray is informed by Darth Sidious.
Yes.
Who I notice isn't actually listed in the credits.
No.
If you notice this, there's no Darth Sidious listed. They contact Lord Sidious, and Lord Sidious says, "Begin landing your troops."
Yes.
And he goes, "I will make it legal." And then they send down their big landing crafts, their droid landing crafts, which are also practical ships.
Yes.
And look amazing. That whole sequence. Anytime the droid army is on the move, it's amazing. The look of those practical models, they're sweeping by, and the big column of MTTs and tanks and troops heading into Theed is just fantastic. I really, really love seeing big armies in motion. That's great. So yeah, Darth Sidious informs them to get rid of the Jedi. They try and gas them in the room with Dioxis, and it doesn't work. They break out and they stow aboard separate ships and meet down on the planet on Naboo. And that's where we get our first exposure, let's call it, to Jar Binks.
Correct. This is where he appears.
I will let you speak on him.
So
perhaps.
Yeah, well, they're on Naboo and they're running away, and then here comes this Gungan who has no idea what's going on, and tries talking to Qui-Gon Jinn, and ends up just jumping on his back.
Yes.
And getting a piggyback ride.
He gets saved by Qui-Gon because the MTT is about to crush them.
Yes.
And he gets saved.
He does indeed. And later explains that I know where we can go. There's a city somewhere, but I don't want to take you there because I've been banished.
Now, Otho Gunga is the name of the city, and the reveal of the whole sequence with the music, it's swelling, and they're diving low, and you sort of see the lights of the bubble city come up.
I have one question with this sequence, and I'm sure you can answer this being a Star Wars man yourself.
Right, fire away.
You know the breathers the Jedis use?
Yeah.
Their noses aren't covered.
Right. Well,
Why?
I imagine the breathers cover their mouths.
They cover the mouth, yeah.
I imagine it has some kind of sort of protective technology, sort of suck the
some weird
sort of
force field.
bubble,
that stops
force
it.
field. Well, actually, it's proven that you can do it with the force.
Okay,
you can
yeah.
force hold your breath. So I don't know why they had the apparatus in the first place.
Probably just wanted like a weird cool thing that's...
Yeah, coolant thing perhaps,
Yeah.
I don't know. But it is proven that you can force hold your breath. So it is possible.
But no, I mean, the reveal of the city is fantastic.
Yeah,
it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole city, they get there, and Jar Jar Binks immediately is...
He's set upon by the guards.
Yes.
And arrested by Captain Tarpals.
Yes. And they are essentially talking to... Now, I can't remember his name.
Right.
Boss
Nass.
Yeah, thank you. I just know him as a guy that keeps making a weird noise.
Yes.
Do
you know what Captain Tarpals and Jar Jar ride? What that creature is called?
You see,
the sort of donkey kind of.
You see,
kangaroo.
I did, but I don't know what it is. My head goes Bantha. It's not that.
Not Bantha.
That's a big woolly thing.
That's the big like woolly elephant with, the horns on the back. That's what the Sand People ride.
Yes.
The Bantha. Now this is called a Cardu.
Okay.
And it's featured in the Clone Wars and some of the episodes. It makes its sort of first appearance in this.
Yeah.
So it's called a Cardu. I remember it's called a Cardu because I had a Lego set of them when I was a kid.
Nice.
You got two Cardu. This sort of plastic orange mold Cardu. You get Jar Jar, you get Captain Tarpals, and you get the sort of the big thing. You know, he hangs on the back of the boomer cart, and he's rolling along. You get that as well, and it can attach to the Cardu. So.
Very nice.
I know, it's fun. I like that. The whole big we've talked about the battle sequence, but it's amazing. So.
Yeah, I mean, they get there. They essentially end up talking and using Jedi mind tricks.
Yep.
Allow Jar Jar to leave. They get transport, which is called a bongo.
Bongo. Do you know why Jar Jar was banished? Because they do tell you.
He
said he's clumsy, but he says something else.
Like blows something up or something, doesn't he?
He says something else. He crashes Boss Nazz's personal submarine.
Okay.
He says he crashes his Boss Nazz's Hey Blibber submarine pod or something like that.
You see, Hey Blibber makes more sense. I don't know why it's called a bongo.
Well,
except for maybe the somewhat witty line of "What's a bongo? A vehicle, I hope."
Yeah, he says I crashed the Boss's Hey Blibber, then banished.
Yeah.
So we imagine that Jar Jar went on a joyride,
possibly,
or was his chauffeur or something,
possibly,
or stole it or whatever. Was some kind of convicted criminal.
Yeah,
and he stole his boss's car. It's like going out your boss's car or something and crashing it, and then he was banished from off the Gungan. He says he was clumsy. I'm onto you, Jar Jar. That was GTA. That was Grand Theft Auto.
I will say though, the underwater sequence in the bongo again also points out the fact of because you get I've wrote these down
through the planet core.
Right. I wrote these down. Here's my notes. Big fish.
Big fish.
Is the OPC killer.
Okay. OPC killer.
The bigger fish.
Right.
Is the Sandow Aqua Monster.
The Sandow Aqua Monster. I know that one.
And then finally, there's this other weird eel fish.
I think I know what it's called. It's the Colo clawfish.
Correct.
Yeah.
I had to look it up because I thought, there's a fish. And I thought, wait a minute, there's another one that comes on in a minute.
Fish.
There's always a bigger fish.
Did you sit and wait for the memes to happen? Did you know when they were coming?
I know always a bigger fish.
Always a bigger fish.
Other than that, not really.
It's getting out of hand. Now there are two of them. Do you know that one?
Yeah, but you sent me the GIF of that.
I did, in fact.
You sent me that in a GIF form.
I did send you that in a GIF form when we were watching the Phantom Menace sort of at similar times. So, and onto the two of them. Who are the two of them? They are the Sith.
They are.
Master and apprentice. It's Darth Sidious and Darth Maul.
I've put down in my notes that Darth Maul gets one of the best entrances of anyone. Because it's a hologram of Sidious, and then suddenly just Darth Maul just appears.
Darth Maul appears behind him, like he was there the whole time, and he's waiting to step forward. That's amazing.
It's again, and I've got this in my notes. As much as Qui-Gon Jinn is one of my favorite Jedi's out there, Darth Maul is one of my favorite Sith.
Yeah, he's got like 5 lines, 3 lines.
And again, he's in one film.
He's in one film.
He's in the Clone Wars,
but lines, but he first appears in this.
Yes,
and he's got that amazing devil head look. Where it's black and red, so tattoos.
Yeah,
and he's got the horns. Initially, they were feathers.
Okay.
They were initially they were sort of as prayer totem kind of feathers upon his head. But then they were interpreted by, I think his name's Nick Dudman, who was in charge of the creative creature team.
Okay.
Interpreted them as sort of horns on the devil. So that's what he made them as. And that's still amazing. Great look.
It's fantastic.
He looks intimidating. He looks fearsome. Ray Park is on his A game.
He is.
This is when Ray Park was in everything.
Yeah.
You know, X-Men, Sleepy Hollow. He was like the go-to stuntman. He pulls off great stuff as Darth Maul. I cannot get enough of that butterfly flip. He does when they're fighting in the sort of the room with the big pit in it.
Yes.
And they're fighting fighting, and he's just cut his double blade lightsaber in half to one saber. And Obi-Wan kind of goes for a strike at the knees, and Darth Maul does like a twist and spin in the air, and then spins around on his heel, and he's like, I love that move every time. And the noise the lightsaber makes where it goes when he's spinning through the air, it's incredible.
I mean, again, Darth Maul in this is fantastic. He's only in this film, if we're talking just film releases, I mean, technically he's in Solo, but he's like a cameo and that's it.
Okay, yes.
He's there.
Okay, so...
But it's
voiced by Peter Serafinowicz,
correct,
well-known British comedian.
Correct.
Not so much a voice actor.
No.
There's a great half-an-hour sort of interview on YouTube. Have you found this?
No.
There's a great half-an-hour interview on YouTube where he talks about his experience in voicing Darth Maul. Right. They wanted to revoice Ray Park because Ray Park's from South London.
Yeah.
You know, quite a soft, sort of distinctive Londoner voice. Want to recast it. So they got Peter Serafinowicz in. And he was in a voice booth with George Lucas, George Lucas was sat behind him, not even behind glass or anything in London, And apparently they were doing this in a very sort of, not a very famous voice theatre or anything like that, quite a sort of run-down place in Soho in London.
Yeah.
And George Lucas was sat behind him, and Peter Serafinowicz was like, George Lucas he's sat behind me, he's not like...
Yeah.
So Peter says to him, how do you want me to do this? What kind of direction can you give me? And George Lucas says, and this is going to be a horrible impression, he goes, just make him evil. Just make him sound real evil. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sure. And there's an even funnier story about Terence Stamp as well, who plays Chancellor Valorum in this.
Yes.
And he joined the film because he apparently was a fan of Natalie Portman.
Okay.
And he wanted to be in a scene with Natalie Portman, which I thought was a bit creepy.
It's a bit weird, yeah.
Yeah, a bit weird, yeah, I'll admit that. It was a bit weird. But apparently Terence Stamp wanted to be in a scene with Natalie Portman.
Okay.
And it was famed that George Lucas gives you a gift after he is done, after you've worked for him, he gives you a gift. And Valorum's only in like 10 minutes of the film. He's
pretty much.
I swear he was in longer than that. He's only in like two scenes at most, right? The scene in the Senate and the scene at the landing platform when they land on the Naboo ship after they've escaped the planet. So on Coruscant.
On Coruscant, yes.
Yes. So Terence Stamp is like, right, okay, I want to do the scene with Natalie Portman, okay. His agent tells him, oh, you're playing the Chancellor of the Galaxy. And he's like, oh, okay, well, better be doing it then. And then, so he's in the scene, and he's in this green room where he's standing on this platform in this green room in this costume, and he's looking down, and there's like a white cross on the floor, like a few meters from him, and he says, how do I perform? What's this white cross? And then the producer says, oh, that white cross, that's Natalie Portman. So, okay. So, and then B, he gets told by his agent, oh, George Lucas gives you a gift when you're done seeing them. Right, okay. He goes back to his dressing room, and there's a box in there. And he thinks, oh, he opens the box, and it's the Phantom Menace stencils.
Okay.
And stickers and stencils. What?
Nice.
So, George Lucas, man of taste, clearly. Man of taste, man of vision. Ideas, man. So, what else do you have in your notes, Corin?
So, one of the other things I want to mention is the similar with the design. If you've gone onto our YouTube channel, which is the Real Show on YouTube, we did a top 5 Starfighters.
We did.
About a year ago now. And 2 of my Starfighters...
Star Wars Starfighters are in this?
Are in this.
Right. I think I should... Would you like me to guess?
Go for it.
Is it the Naboo N1 Starfighter?
That was one of them.
The Naboo fighter used by the Royal Naboo Guard. And is it the Vulture droid?
It is.
The Trade Federation
Correct.
Vulture droid used
Which
in
are
this.
both designed by a guy called Doug Chiang.
Yes. But still working today on Star Wars.
He is still working today on Star Wars. And the ship designs in this and the general stuff, it's fantastic.
The aesthetic. There was a video by YouTube called E.C. Henry, if you can find, if you're familiar. He's done a video about the aesthetic of Star Wars and how it's different from every other sci-fi aesthetic, but it's the same.
Yes.
Like, if I show you 2 ships, you can say they're both in Star Wars, but they look vastly different. But they somehow look like they're based sort of the same. Like if I show you like a Lucrehulk battleship and I show you a Star Destroyer, they look vastly different, but you can both tell they're in the same universe.
Yes.
Right? And that's an amazing... There's that Star Wars feel.
Yeah.
And Kathleen Kennedy defined it, who's now president of Lucasfilm, defined it as a silhouette.
The
Star Wars silhouette is a big thing, where you can tell who it is without seeing them.
Yeah.
Like if I show you a silhouette of any ship in the Phantom Menace, you will know what it is.
Yeah.
Right? It's that having that iconic look, even from the opening the console, like that red cruiser looks a bit like the Tantive 4, but it's got 3 engines. And,
yes.
You know,
the Naboo was based off of a old car concept. Because Doug Chain mentioned the fact that it was supposed to be reminiscent of the 1920s.
Yeah, that classic time.
Yes. The Vulture droid was supposed to essentially look like a TIE fighter before TIE fighters existed.
Yeah.
That was that whole plan. That's why if you look on the sides, it kind of has there's 2 side pod things.
Yeah, it's got a walking mode as well. Like it can walk on. That's its appeal. It can walk on the side of a ship like a walker, and then it can transform into a like a jet mode and fly as well.
And that's, to be fair, that's one of the things I think with Phantom Menace that is. Because whenever people mention Phantom Menace, they're always like, oh, Jar Jar is really annoying, or the dialogue isn't great. But if you look into the world and the world building in this film, it's fantastic.
It's incredible. Right, let me mention the droidicas, right? Yes. For a second, you mentioned the droidicas.
Yep. And
the droidicas this is a bit of lore here.
Okay.
But they're built by a species called the colocoids.
Okay.
Right? And if you look at the colocoids, they look like a big...
They look like
a big fleshy droidica, effectively. They walk on those 4 little legs.
Yes.
They've got that sort of hunched stature. And I feel like it's an amazing thing, because all we get in sci-fi mostly is like a robot with 2 arms and 2 legs.
Yep.
It's like a humanoid robot, right? But a robot that goes around on like 3 legs and has this sort of very hunched stature and quite large, 4 arms.
Yeah.
So that's really unique. And the Vulture droids are the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Vulture droids, you've got droidicas, you've got R2 unit, which is in this.
Yeah.
You've got C-3PO, which it makes an appearance. Hasn't quite joined the squad yet, but it's there.
Well, forward in the story a little bit.
Yes.
The Jedi rescue the Queen Amidala.
They do.
Played by sometimes Keira Knightley and sometimes I'm about to say Padme Amidala. But who I mean is Natalie Portman.
Yes.
Padme Amidala is who she plays and who features in this. So the nice little note about that is this is so weird. I feel this is so strange, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Okay.
Keira Knightley looks very similar to Natalie Portman.
Yes.
And that's what they're riding on here, right?
Yes.
You sort of can't tell the difference because her name is Sabe or Rabe, and she's the double for Padme Amidala, right? Because Padme Amidala is the real queen.
Yes.
But she's in disguise throughout this film, right? It's just a handmaiden and not the queen. But in universe, they wear that sort of very distinctive makeup pattern.
Yes.
So people can't tell them apart. So with the makeup, with the sort of distracting white face and the red dots and the red sort of streaks and stuff, you can't tell who it is, right? It's just like her face, And once they had this makeup on, even I think Keira Knightley's mother couldn't tell the difference between Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman in the same makeup, in the same costume.
It's very convincing.
So it is very convincing, and they try and put on the same sort of voice, the same sort of faux British accent that Carrie Fisher tried in The New Hope. So, and there's it's a slew of voices. Everyone's got a different voice.
Yes.
Everyone sounds different. So, but I think the real star of this film, is. I was about to skip forward to Coruscant then.
Ooh.
I might hold on who I think the real star of this film is.
Okay.
Let's talk about Tatooine.
Let's mention Tatooine.
Because they escaped the Viceroy and his blockade of deadly battleships. They fly straight past. R2-D2 helps save them.
He does.
And they get there. They get to Tatooine.
They do.
The hyperdrive has been damaged.
Yes.
So they have to land there. And a good point by Qui-Gon is that Tatooine is controlled by the Hutts.
Yes.
But the Hutts aren't looking for
no.
Queen Amidala, so they can land there safely.
Yes, they have the advantage.
And the Trade Federation isn't present on Tatooine, so it's in the Outer Rim. So they land there, and they look for parts, and they arrive at Watto's junkyard.
They do.
Now, Watto, very interesting character.
He is.
He is indeed. This big blue fly. He's a Toydarian, he says.
Okay.
He is mind tricks don't work on him.
They do not.
You may wonder why. I wondered this question. I've got it down in my notes.
Oh, okay.
I put, why are Toydarians
inherently... Did you not know this?
I had a suspicion of why.
Okay.
It's because Toydarians are a species that are inherently born because the mind trick will work on those of the weak-minded. So those of like the lazy...
I mean, we've seen it earlier in the film.
Yeah. Sort of lazy people who don't want to do their job. It's more of a suggestion technique.
Yes.
It's been suggested in the novels. It's less brainwashing and more suggestion.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get up and leave, and I say, you will get up and leave, but you kind of want to, you'll just do it. Because it's not really, I'm not brainwashing you, it's more like giving into your suggestion. Like if you're kind of working a really dead end job and you want to go to sleep and someone goes, you will go to sleep, and it's knocked out.
Yeah.
It's like that, right? It's more of a power of heightened suggestion, not so much a brainwash.
Okay.
So that's why he says, Republic credits will do fine, because he knows that Watto's a gambler, Watto's a schemer. He'll think Republic credits are fine. So that's why he says, no, they won't.
Yes.
No, they won't. Because Toydarians as a species are born inherently with strong wills, because they live on quite a harsh planet. I think they were a servitude to another species beforehand, and they're born on quite harsh conditions.
Yeah.
So they're inherently strong-willed, so they will resist the mind trick. And it's not just with Toydarians. Hutts doesn't work on Hutts either.
Okay.
Because Luke Skywalker tries it on Jabba in Return of the Jedi. It doesn't work. And Jabba he knows the effect of a Jedi mind trick, because he mind tricks Bib Fortuna. And Jabba goes, he's using the old Jedi mind trick on you. It doesn't work on me.
Yeah.
I'm a Hutt, right? So we know it doesn't work on other species.
Yes.
Right? So, and also, maybe Qui-Gon is just bad at mind tricks.
Or that,
Have you considered that, perhaps? That's something I considered, that he's not doing it hard enough. Or it's
possibly.
It works on Boz Nass, so I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but Boz Nass just seems easily
swayed. Boz Nass wanted to get rid of them anyway.
Well, yeah, true.
So it's the power of heightened suggestion. That's the mind trick. Yeah. So he just said, then get rid of us. And I thought, we'll get rid of you. So that's how it works, basically. And that's also an explanation for A New Hope, where Obi-Wan says they're not the droids you're looking for, and that all the stormtroopers go along with it, because not only did it only affect that man, all the men around him, it basically made them want to slack off on their jobs.
Yes.
Because they were on Tatooine, they were working, long hours in the sun, and they're in the white armor, it's hot, So they just wanted to slack off. And basically that's what the mind trick did, heightened their suggestion, so that's what they did. They didn't want to look for the droids. So, back on Tatooine.
Yes.
We run into Watto, and we run into little Anakin Skywalker.
Correct.
Yippee.
Yeah, that gets said a couple of times.
Thoughts on Anakin? Thoughts on a young Anakin played by Jake Lloyd? Also, poor Jake Lloyd. I'm very sorry for him.
I was going to mention this.
He got hell for this.
He did.
Film.
To the point where eventually on Twitter, what's his name? Guy who plays Skywalker is
Mark Hamill.
Yes, had to defend him on Twitter.
Yeah. So this poor lads. I think overall. I always thought him he's a kid. He's He's 8, 9 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Kids are obsessed with stuff at 8, 9 years. I was obsessed with Star Wars when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't shut up about it. And if you put me in a film, that's probably what I'd talk about too.
Yeah.
Anakin Skywalker is a kid who's never left Tatooine.
No.
Ever. He's lived there all his life as a slave to Watto, a slave to the Hutts, right? And all he loves pod racing.
He does.
So he's just talking about pod racing all the time. That's because he likes it.
Yeah.
That's what my understanding was. Because kids who aren't removed kids that aren't removed from their environment will learn to love things around them. Surely.
I thought he was fine. I didn't see a problem with him. He didn't, take me out of the film, take me out of the immersion. The yippies were a little bit there. Saying that, Jar Binks says, "How rude," more than Anakin says yippee. I counted for at least 3 or 4 times when Jar Jar says that. I thought he was alright. He was believable enough as a kid. I thought he was alright. He wasn't bad.
There's a short documentary, a 15-minute documentary on YouTube called "In a Galaxy Far, Far Away, I Was Almost Anakin Skywalker." And have you seen this?
I have not, but in the behind the scenes of Phantom Menace, it shows
the audition process.
It shows for auditions for Anakin, yes.
There was a child actor called Devon Michael who auditioned for the role of Anakin. And I've seen this. It shows what he's doing now. He's just a guy.
Oh, okay.
He's just a regular dude with a regular job.
It happens to some actors.
And they just get out of it.
Yeah.
And he could have been Anakin Skywalker. Would his life have been ruined the way Jake Lloyd's life was ruined?
Probably.
Would that sort of exposure catapult you into...
I reckon any kid playing Anakin probably would have got the same kind of...
people say on the internet that Anakin should never have started out as a 10-year-old kid. He should have been like a 15-year-old, an 18-year-old, nearly growing up to an adult. He shouldn't have started out as a little kid.
I don't mind it. I kind of like it because you see him when he's a bit younger, and then also it allows you to see the early stages of him and his mum. Early C-3PO.
That goodbye scene is so hot, even today.
Yes.
Of him leaving, because I can't imagine,
Yeah, and then also you see all his other friends who are kind of a similar age.
Yeah.
There's even I don't know. I can't remember if he's in the film or if it's just a deleted scene. You ever see a really young Greedo?
That's the deleted scene.
Yeah.
I know because I watched it when I was looking at the deleted scenes for this film, and it was in there.
Yeah.
The Greedo scene. Anakin's tussling with Greedo in the street, fighting him, and Qui-Gon pulls him off and says, "Oh, leave him, Anakin. You know, he's not worth it." And Greedo's like, "Oh, he's saying McClunky, you know, in his Rhodian language." And then Wold, who's another Rhodian, who is in the film, he's played by Warwick Davis, says, "Oh, you should stop fighting people, Greedo. You'll get yourself shot. You know? You'll get yourself hit first, Greedo."
You know what? Warwick Davis has been a plethora of people in the Star Wars films.
He's a plethora of people in this film.
Because he appears again at the pod race.
Yeah.
As himself.
He's Watto's side. He's called Weasel. That character's called Weasel, who actually appears in Solo. He's one of the Cloud Riders.
Okay.
So he's the same character from and Watto, not Watto, and Warwick Davis likes to think that that character went on a bit of a journey from Tatooine, sort of broke out of slavery and sort of joined this rebel group called the Cloud Riders, with Memphis Nest and the Cloud Riders. So that is the same character.
Okay.
He also plays a character who's nicknamed Grimy, who is in the background of one of the... When they first walk into Mos Espa...
Yep.
When they first walk into Mos Espa, Qui-Gon, Padme, and Jar Jar, and R2-D2. When they first come in, he's in the background, sort of walking by them, behind them.
Okay.
And literally, he was on set that day.
Yeah.
He wasn't actually even slated to be an extra. He just came onto set, and George Lucas was like, "Oh, we'll dress you up in these sort of backpacker clothes, and you can walk across the scene."
I do think this is one thing with the Phantom Menace that I don't particularly like. Is every now and then, it happens with the pod racing bit when you've got Jabba the Hutt and everyone around him, and it happens with after Jar Jar Binks has had a kerfuffle with Sebulba, and he goes and sits down. He's just surrounded by people that are obviously wearing like a bright hair-coloured wig and makeup, but just look like other humans. Right. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, well, there's the concept of sort of near humans in Star Wars. There's actually a cameo from a famous, soon-to-be famous Star Wars character, Quinlan Vos, in that scene. He's sort of he's got a very distinctive yellow stripe across his face.
Yes.
He sort of sat behind Sebulba, and he was on a secret mission for the Jedi Council on Tatooine, and that's really interesting, actually. But there's more than one instance of that. Aura Singh is in the pod race.
Yes, she is.
Do you remember Aura Singh, sort of white skin, sort of near human with long fingers and a ponytail?
Yeah, she was in my
like a female bounty hunter.
top five background characters.
Yeah, Aura Singh. Yeah, she was initially named by like Lady Boba Fett or something like that, just as the background character for the pod race.
Yes.
And she was turned into a character in Legends who was like a former Jedi apprentice and collected lightsabers and stuff like that. And now she's in canon as like one of the most famous bounty hunters in the galaxy.
The pod race scene in this is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The sound design. There's no music. Do you notice? No. I don't think there's any music at all in that sequence. Maybe in some of like the more dramatic bits where Anakin's speeding ahead or something like that.
Possibly.
But the sounds of the engines, the roar of the engines. So the sound of Sebulba's pod, you know, the as he's coming up behind, and you can hear it in the. I remember, I saw this film in 3D when it was re-released in 2012. I want to say.
Okay.
I will just check that. When it was re-released in 3D, me and my dad went to go and see it in the cinema.
Okay.
And yes, it was February 10th, 2012.
There you go.
It was released in 3D. Me and my dad picked me up from school, took me to the cinema to watch Phantom Menace in 3D. And I remember the sound of the sound of the pod racer, seeing it was great for when, you know, the ships are flying at you and stuff, the lasers are whizzing by.
I believe it was at Butlins.
Where all Star Wars things.
Yes. And it might have been other places as well. You know, right? You get them like really small simulation things, where it's like a little
a video game.
No. Like you sit in it, so it's like a really small pod with like 10 people in it, and it essentially you've got a big screen in front of you, and it tilts left, right, up, down.
Yeah.
They had that always, and it was a pod racer one. So it's essentially Anakin's pod racer. You know how like you eventually every now and then you get a camera which is like the two engines at the front.
Yeah.
It's essentially that for the whole time. It's a whole pod race.
Shot of the pod race.
Yes.
Wow.
It's the whole, and you're just in Anakin's thing tilting all the time, and everyone gets eliminated, and it's great.
Wow. It's like explosions and rock falls and stuff. I remember the Lego Star Wars level of the pod race. How hard it was because how fast you were going, and you'd bump into the walls and you'd bump into other pod racers. And I remember how hard that. You seen, there's a new Lego Star Wars game, the Skywalker
There
Saga.
is.
There's the pod racing level is basically the same, apparently. It's the complete saga, which is great.
I mean,
that's great to see.
But yeah, I mean the pod racing scene in this is fantastic. But to be fair, there's a lot of parts in this that are like they're just great. We mentioned the whole battle with the Gungans is fantastic. Duel of the Fates is fantastic.
Can we get on to who I believe the star of this film is?
Go for it.
They leave Tatooine, taking Anakin with them. They realise he's force sensitive through something called midi-chlorians.
Yes.
Which is like I believe it's like a force conductor in the blood.
Yeah.
It's not so much a scientific basis for the force as it is like a force.
Yeah, because Anakin has over 20,000 midi-chlorians, and I believe he might have been born by the midi-chlorians.
Yes.
Because Shmi has no husband.
No husband, no father. Yeah. There's no father. So they head back to Coruscant.
They do.
And then we meet the star of this film.
Okay.
The real star, who I believe is Ian McDiarmid as Senator Palpatine.
So it's not Yaddle.
No, it's not Yaddle. It's not Yarrell Poof. It's not Yaddle, as far as Yaddle. I thought, you know what? When we were thinking about making this episode, I was like, he's going to bring up Yaddle, isn't he? Yaddle. I'll bring up Yarrell Poof.
Yeah.
No, I think it's Ian McDiarmid as Senator Palpatine is absolutely amazing. The fact that he came back from Return of the Jedi, and they never said Palpatine's name in Return of the Jedi. They all just called him the Emperor.
Yes.
If you'd seen, I doubt you'd realise. Maybe that last scene where they sort of linger on him in the funeral, and you see his face lit up by the fire. Maybe you'd think then he was Sidious.
I have one note on Palpatine,
right?
Which may be
his first name's Sheev.
Which may be a hot take.
Okay, go on.
It's not that. I was watching this, and sometimes when Palpatine was on the screen, I have it written down. Palpatine gave me Rowan Atkinson vibes. Very much Blackadder vibes, and I don't know why.
Yeah, he's a bit Blackadder-ish, isn't he?
It's also because the outfit he wears is like tight.
Sure.
Yeah, he's got like tight forearms and like poofy upper arms.
Poofy shoulders. He goes, a surprise to be sure, but the welcome one.
I just kept getting Blackadder vibes.
He just looks like a kindly, benevolent man who loves his planet, and he's a nice senator, representative of the Senate. I know there's a novel by James Luceno, not canon anymore.
Okay.
There's a novel by James Luceno that about Plagueis that states that Darth Plagueis was still alive during the events of Episode 1 and was kind of not seen ever, but sort of working in the background as his sort of public identity of Hugo Damask for the banking clan. And he meets with Palpatine. Palpatine's his Sith apprentice and stuff.
Banking clan. Yes.
And Darth Maul is this sort of Sith assassin that was trained under Palpatine and stuff.
Yeah.
And the entire events of the Phantom Menace are basically Plagueis' plan to create an empire and sort of to start off with the taxing of trade routes. And even then, even in sort of early drafts of like A New Hope, it came to light that the Emperor, who I think was under some funny name, was took power by taxing trade routes and by very sort of political means.
Yeah.
And that's the way that Palpatine does eventually. So I think I really like Palpatine's portrayal in this film.
Palpatine's really good.
Yeah, and the fact they brought after 15 years they brought him back, and he looks great. So I know he's been he's got lighter colour hair and he's wearing a wig and stuff. The wigs that you say, the wigs are very obvious.
Yeah.
The reshoots, if you see you can tell when they're doing a reshoot because of Obi-Wan's wig.
Yes.
And Ewan McGregor was talking about wearing this stuffy, blonde wig, and he hates the scenes where he has to go back and reshoot. So, and you can tell there's a do you know about fake Windu?
Yes, maybe. Enlighten me.
Right, at the ending of Phantom Menace,
yeah,
Darth Maul's been defeated in the lightsaber battle. Qui-Gon's been killed.
Yes,
and it's Chancellor Palpatine coming off the transport onto the Theed main street. Obi-Wan and Anakin are there, and the Jedi sort of filing off the ship behind him.
Yeah.
Ki-Adi-Mundi's there. Yoda's actually a practical. There's a bodysuit of Yoda.
Okay.
Warwick Davis.
Nice.
There's a bodysuit of Yoda coming off the ship. E. Evan Peel's there as well. Depa Billaba, all of the sort of background Jedi. Pretty sure like Eith Koth and Yarrell Poof are there and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Yaddle was there, maybe. So they're all coming off the ship, and there's a man there who isn't Samuel L. Jackson.
Nice.
He's just a man. Just a man. He's not, and you can see his face up close. He does not look like Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
So we don't know who he is.
Oh.
He's not been given a name. I've looked. I've seriously looked. I do not know if he's named or not. He's just a man who doesn't look like doesn't look like Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Samuel Jackson's in this. He's Mace Windu.
Yes, he is.
And he's not in the final scene. He's in the sequence when the parade and all the Jedi are sort of standing together and he's looking out.
Yeah.
He's not in the scene where they come off the ship.
Oh.
Because I think that was a reshot scene.
Oh, okay.
Because apparently I think Palpatine didn't interact with Anakin.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire thing. I think they gave him that scene just to, make him interact with Obi-Wan because he says, "Oh, we're indebted to you for your bravery, Obi-Wan Kenobi."
Yes.
He goes, "And you, young Skywalker, will watch your career with great interest." He
yes.
pats him on the back.
Yes.
So they didn't interact. So that scene was added in reshoots.
That makes sense.
And then we get fake Windu,
nice.
as he's called. And Mace Windu doesn't do much in this. He's given more action in the second one.
He is.
But he's more of a kind of almost like a very minor character. He only has a few lines But you get Sam Jackson.
Well, exactly.
For a film. I think there's a story of how Sam Jackson got hired. I think he actually approached George Lucas about being in the film, and he said, "I don't care what role you give me. You know, put me in a stormtrooper costume and have me run across the screen. You know, no one has to know it but me." Kind of thing. And he said, George Lucas says, "Oh, we'll find something for you." And then they made him a Jedi.
Correct.
So it's great to see him. Those council scenes, the Coruscant, the whole Coruscant thing. There's a scene at night. I'm not sure where it is. I think it's the scene where the council say they're not going to allow Anakin in because he's too old.
Yeah.
And the fact that Qui-Gon tries to take him, but Obi-Wan's like, "Oh well, I'm your apprentice already." He does it right in front of Obi-Wan. So,
yeah.
You know, a bit insulting, but you see the cityscape and it stretches it stretches to the horizon.
Yeah.
Like as far as you can see, there's lights on in the background because the whole planet is one big city. That's Coruscant, right? It's a city planet. So the whole planet's one massive city. You can see to the edge of the horizon. And do you feel like Qui-Gon was screwed over by the Jedi Council?
Yes.
The Obi-Wan, we're led to believe it several times that Qui-Gon is disliked by the Council for his sort of aberrant views.
Yes.
For his views that the Jedi should take a more active role in conflict resolution, that the Jedi shouldn't be, sitting back when all this bad stuff's happening in the galaxy, and saying, "Oh, we're only keepers of the peace. We're not." He's quite radical. He's a radical thinker. Qui-Gon.
Yeah, I mean, there's even that part with Obi-Wan's talking to Yoda, and he's like, "Oh, Anakin will be my apprentice," and Yoda's like, "Oh, Qui-Gon's like whatever. Like, Qui-Gon's anguish I see in you.
Yeah.
You do not need it or something."
Yes. Yeah.
I think, and it's one of the things though, because like everyone says Duel of the Fates, everyone's like, "Oh, it's for Darth Maul and it's Qui-Gon Jinn, and that's the whole thing."
Yeah.
But everyone's like, "Well, if Qui-Gon Jinn won, everyone's like Anakin would have been trained by someone who would have had a different mindset and maybe wouldn't have then gone to the dark side."
Yeah. Dave Filoni talks about this. There's a director's roundtable for The Mandalorian, and Dave Filoni goes on for like 10 minutes talking about the meaning of the Duel of the Fates.
Yes.
And I'll just mention this first. There's a line by Obi-Wan that says, "Oh, if you just followed the Jedi Code, you'd be on the Council."
Yes.
So it says if Qui-Gon did the right thing, he'd be granted all the Jedi perks. But no, he continues to push for his own agenda, for want of a better word, and wants to make his own justice. So, and then Dave Filoni's point was, it's called the Duel of the Fates.
Yes.
Because it is the fate of Anakin.
It's the fate of Anakin, yeah.
It's the fate of Anakin. It's the fate of if Qui-Gon survives,
yes,
Anakin will have a father figure.
Yes.
And someone to teach him and bring him up like the right way, and maybe not in accordance with the Jedi Council, but in a way that Anakin will need. He'll need a strong father figure.
Correct.
And Qui-Gon is that. But Qui-Gon dies in the battle.
He does.
So Obi-Wan has to do it. And Obi-Wan, who's even in the Phantom Menace, expressed dislike for Anakin.
Yeah.
He said he's comparing Anakin to Jar Jar when he first says. He says, "I feel I've since we picked up another useless life form."
Yes.
He says he's not even discounting Anakin. At the landing pad, Obi-Wan says, "Oh, we shouldn't be dragging around this boy," or something like that. He says he's having doubts about it.
Yes.
And he only does it because Qui-Gon says.
Yeah.
He only trains Anakin because Qui-Gon says you must train the boy as his last wish before he dies. And even Yoda says he doesn't think it's a good idea.
Well, Yoda says that he may be the chosen one, but he sees like a dark future in his.
Yeah.
He senses much anger in him,
yeah.
And that's not good.
Yoda, he says that fear leads to anger.
Yes.
And anger leads to hate.
Yes.
And hate leads to suffering.
Yeah.
So, don't do any of those things.
No.
And then Yoda only sort of allows it because maybe he feels like he should have honoured Qui-Gon's wish, or he feels like he says...
Well, I think it's because I see it as Yoda values Obi-Wan, and he knows that Obi-Wan's going to do it, so he kind of has to agree to it.
And Obi-Wan's a good Jedi. He follows the code and such.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan does his best. He tries to do his best under the circumstances.
He does.
But Obi-Wan tries to be too strict a Jedi. And I feel like people say that Anakin would have always followed Qui-Gon's path.
Yes.
Because Anakin was sort of influenced by Qui-Gon at an early age.
Yeah,
so he sort of followed more of Qui-Gon's...
There's also a bit where it's like Qui-Gon's funeral, and Anakin's asking Obi-Wan, like, "Oh, what's happened to me now?" And then Obi-Wan's like, "Oh, I am your master now."
Yes,
or something.
I will be a Jedi.
It's like Anakin, even then, you can kind of sense he's more on Qui-Gon. He's more comfortable with Qui-Gon than he is Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's been spent a whole film with him, pretty much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, and then from that, a very sort of, I like that we've gone on to the discussion of the Duel of the Fates.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great sequence. really the lightsaber combat, speedy lightsaber combat.
Yes.
Like a deadly game of chess, right? Any false move means
and that's
death.
it. Yeah.
You got to cover it, and it's built with a combination of like kendo styles, martial arts, fencing. The stunt coordinator, a chap called Nick Gillard, worked for a long time on perfecting on the spinning, on the movement, so they can only block there, they can only cut there. Like the moves have to flow and have to feel good, and you watch it and it's like a masterclass.
Yeah.
I always say it's got this Phantom Menace is like the peak. It's the Jedi in their prime. It's the peak, and of course they got the silky skills.
Yeah.
If they cut around Darth Maul's two at once, it's because Ray Park initially the hilt was sort of smaller. But Ray Park said it'd better if you sort of doubled the hilt so he could hold it like a sort of bow staff and work it like that, which looks amazing. So I felt, and the choreography is
fantastic.
It's chef's kiss,
yes.
really. So, and bring on to sort of that sort of behind the scenes element. My weekly rec for this week.
Yeah.
It's we mentioned it many times.
Okay.
It is a Lucasfilm produced hour-long documentary on the Phantom Menace.
Okay.
But before I go more into it, do you have a real rating for
I
Phantom
do.
Menace?
I have
okay,
it.
Well, so do I.
I have it written down in my notes.
Okay.
Possibly higher than most people would give it.
Right. Well, maybe mine's higher as well.
Okay.
You go first.
I'm giving it a 7.5.
What? Mine is slightly higher.
I was tempted to go for an 8. Is that what yours is?
Mine was originally bridging around a 9.
Oh.
But I know that's a
That's
controversial
big.
take. That is a big take. But I feel like I'm going to go easy and I'm going to give it 8.5.
This definitely does not get the hate it deserves.
No, not by a long shot.
It's really good.
This was many people's first Star Wars film.
Yeah.
This was many people's first, and I know people, have at the time have sort of burnt out on the prequels and stuff like that, and I feel like the hate has gotten less and less the more and more they've been around.
The sequels definitely help that, because now everyone hates them.
Yeah, and the prequels have kind of got more love and more
Yeah.
and more appreciation now.
Yeah.
So my weekly rec.
Yeah.
After those, my final rating is going to be an 8.5.
Okay.
So 2 points ahead of yours.
1 point ahead of
1
mine.
point ahead of yours. The weekly rec for this week is The Beginning, Making Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The full version's up on YouTube. It's free from the Star Wars official YouTube channel. It's about an hour long, goes into everything from the creatures to the story to the costumes to the visual effects to the stunt coordination to script reading, shooting, everything from the Tunisia shoot to visual effects supervision, editing, animation, rough cut review, the effects review, everything, music, John Williams, George Lucas, from meeting Steven Spielberg, who actually would have directed this film, but I think he had some kind of complication to step out, and then George Lucas moved in to direct it himself. Everything from just early video tests of Jar Binks, the practical model of the suit they made before he went full CGI, and everything from Doug Chang features as design director. There's the casting director Robert Garland as well. It's just full of amazing information, and it's really it's a great insight. It opens with John Knoll, who I started this episode with, as visual effects supervisor for ILM. So I feel like that's a perfect place to end.
Makes sense.
So, thank you very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this, and we hope you all come back next week and listen to us some more. We've got some great content coming up in Star Wars for our month of May, so we hope you have a good time. But for now, it's goodbye from me, goodbye, and a goodbye from Corey.
Goodbye.